Welcome to the Dalen Show. People, how are you doing? I hope all is well. As always, it's just good to be in front of you. And it's just good to be back on the journey, man. I know I've been saying that a lot over the last few episodes, but I just really, this is truly my passion, and I've enjoyed every single episode so far. Just it's been filled with great advice and laughter as well. So I've just enjoyed so much of this, and I missed it so much. And I hope you guys are enjoying it as much as I've been enjoying it, and just allowing me to enjoy my process and my journey. So just thank you so much for your blessings and your grace. It just means so much. And let's continue working hard, man. And let's continue blessing other people as well, man. And let me stop talking so much, and let's introduce our guest for the show today, Miss Donna Terrell.
Hello, Dalen. It's good to be here.
Well, I appreciate you so much. I can't express my gratitude for you being here, because I've wanted to do this for a long time now. And I first want to ask you, just how are you doing right now? How's everything in your world going right now?
Everything's going pretty well. No complaints. Work is good. Home is good. At some point, though, just so you know, you're going to see Vladimir show up. That's my cat, Vladimir. Little Russian blue rescue cat, and he likes being in videos, so prepare for that.
Well, I'm all in for it. I love cats. I know my mom is probably going to be watching this, and she may not be the biggest fan of Vladimir, but I think she'll deal with it. I'm trying to express my love of cats on her, and she just is not going for it. But hopefully, we can change that this episode. Miss Donna, if you don't
I know a lot of
mind.
people feel that way.
Yes, man. If you don't mind, I love my guests to kind of give a quick introduction about themselves, so people watching and listening can get to know you just quickly before we get into you. So maybe just where you're from, just some things you've been able to do to get you where you are today. Just a brief introduction about yourself.
Okay, brief introduction. I grew up in a little town called Albion, Michigan, and I went to, after I graduated from high school there, went to Central Michigan University, majored in broadcasting. And I guess you could say maybe a month or so after I graduated, got real lucky, got my first television job. It wasn't in news, but I worked my way into it. And I have been in television news ever since. I never deviated and started, I've done other things, but I've always had a television, full-time TV job in news as a reporter, and eventually an anchor. And now today, here I sit before you in Little Rock, Arkansas, working for Fox 16 at 5:30, 6:30, and 9. And March will be our 20th year on air for Fox 16 News at 9. I was brought here to help launch that newscast, and it's now been 20 years. Where does the time go?
I say this at the beginning because we've had a conversation before, and it's not going to be as in depth as this will be, but it brought me to how excited I was, because you have such a rare story to tell, and I feel like people see you so much on their TVs every week, but they really don't get to truly know the background of who you are and where you've come from and what's made you you. And so I think that is what has made me so excited for this story. So I'm grateful to have you on today, and I'm just appreciated that you've been able to join me so far.
Thank you.
Talk about growing up in Michigan. I know you spent so much time there, and it helped develop you into the woman that you are today. But what was growing up in Michigan like? Where did your passion for wanting to become a journalist come from? And what was your childhood like in Michigan?
Well, it was a good childhood. Albion, the town where I grew up, is small. I think at the time when I grew up, we had maybe 15,000 people. And for folks who come from towns even smaller than that, because I always say I came from a small town, they're like, oh, well, I can beat you on that one, but I think 15,000 is rather small. It never felt small to us, though, growing up. It just felt like that was the way it was meant to be.
Mhm.
A very close-knit community. Everybody knew everybody. It's kind of hard to get into a whole lot of trouble because someone would go back and tell your mom and dad. Um, in terms of getting into broadcasting, as I mentioned, I graduated from Central Michigan University with a major in broadcasting. Um, when I was in high school, I took a journalism class, and the only reason I took that journalism class was because I thought the word journalism had an interesting sound to it. And I thought, oh, I want to take journalism because it was an elective class. And that's where I began to feel like I like telling stories. Um, and writing at first was a challenge because my teachers, Mrs. Henry, would use all of those little red pens and scratch up everything and change things. But
Mhm.
eventually, if you don't start to get it, then you never will. Eventually, I got better at writing. In addition to that, I took a class called forensics, and that really consisted of like public speaking and debate. And I was on the public speaking side, and eventually moved into um, got on the team, on the forensics team, and we'd go out and compete. And I was always the shy kid, I mean, I was afraid to walk across a stage if people were going to be looking at me. I was
Mhm.
just kind of like, oh, do I really have to do that? And uh, I loved forensics because I felt like I had a captive audience that would just listen to me. And so you might get where I'm going here. Put
Yes, ma'am.
journalism and forensics together, and what do you have? Voila, you have TV news. And so it was in high school that I made the decision that, you know what? I'm going to major in broadcasting. I'm going to be on TV and do the news. And so that's how that happened.
Uh, as someone that is not too recently ago had to go through the process of picking a college which is best for me, was Central Michigan your first option? Did you invest in maybe any other schools that you thought highly would best fit you? What was the process for you for landing at Central Michigan, and how were that process found about?
I feel like I kind of got lucky with that because my counselor told me, since I was already determined, a lot of my friends, we were all planning to go to college, but I was one of the few who knew exactly what I wanted to major in. And
Yes,
she
ma'am.
said, to be honest with you, Central was not my first choice. I wanted to go where my friends were, and they were going to Eastern Michigan, Western Michigan, uh,
Mhm.
all state schools. But she said Central Michigan at the time had the best broadcasting department in the state, and they accepted me. And so it was a no-brainer. Um, it was better than U of M. And, I mean, everybody knows University of Michigan, go Wolverines, like huge in Michigan in terms of state schools. And Michigan State University, it had a better broadcasting program than all of these really, prominent schools. So that's how Central came about. I had said at one point I wanted to go to Northwestern University in Evanston, Illinois, and enter their Medill School of Journalism. I still remember that because I would talk about it all the time. But that was kind of out of the question because, first and foremost, my parents could not afford to send me to um, a school out of state. That was just out of the question. You're very lucky. I mean, here you are. You left Arkansas, um, but that was not in the cards for me at the time.
I love that you bring that up because I wanted to ask you, and my mother has been so much of a big supporter of mine and just my best friend, and been so meant so much to me. What did your parents mean to you, and how did they continue to help you become who you are today and allow you to just be free and allow you to choose and do what you wanted to do with your life?
Well, it was. a little complicated, and I'll get into that part. But my mother always said, I mean, from a little child, she always said she wanted her children to go to college. She wanted Donna to go to college. It was just me and my brother. And so, it was instilled in me that, I'm going to go to college. I mean, even before I knew what college was or what it could do for my life, I'm going to go to college.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
then um, Donna got pregnant and ended up having a child as a teenager. And I remember I said to my mother, I said, "Mom, what does this mean? What about college?" And she said, "We're all going to college." I didn't know what that meant at the time. I just thought, okay, that's a positive answer. I'm going to go with it. And basically, what my mother meant was, Donna, you're going to go to college. Your daughter is going to go to college, and she wasn't talking about Queah, my daughter down the road when she graduated high school. She meant you're going to go to college and you're going to take your daughter with you. And then while I was in school, and my parents did help me with Queah. They kept her the first 2 years of school, and then those last 2 years, yeah, my daughter stayed on campus in uh, they called it married housing, but if you had children or a child, you could live in married housing even if you weren't married. So she stayed on campus with me, and then my mother enrolled in college. And so she had a master plan all along, and she wasn't going to let my life be derailed or my future be derailed because, Donna did something that, was never in the plan for her. Wasn't, having a child out of wedlock, let alone as a teenager, was not in the plan. But I had really good parents in that. And my dad would just basically, it's like, okay, whatever mom says, Donna, we're doing that. So she was just a very determined woman who put a lot of that determination in me. And when I saw that, hey, look, I got this opportunity to go to school and to better my life and get out of this potential mess that I've created for myself. When that door opened, I flew out and I never looked back. And I owe my parents that credit because they could have easily said, "Well, you know what, you messed up. We had planned this for you," and it wasn't like they had money or a lot of resources because they didn't. I mean, that first year was all about financial aid and student loans. But
Yes,
as
ma'am.
luck would have it, and I'm gonna give you a chance to ask me a question here, but
You're
as
good.
luck as luck would have it, my dad worked for Corning Glass, and he didn't know at the time, but someone told him, you know, Donna could apply for a scholarship through Corning Glass because you work here. And sure enough, I did. My grades were good enough, and lo and behold, those last 3 years of school, Corning Glass paid for um, tuition, books, and because the first 2 years I was in the dorm, the second 2 years I was in on campus housing with my daughter, um, they paid for that. So there were many, many blessings, and I owe my parents, I owe God and my parents the credit.
That's awesome. And this is, I don't even know how to say what I want to say. This is just kind of emotional for myself as well because I love to hear that story about your parents because my mother has just kind of meant that same kind of resource to me as well. And I could not be where I am today without her. And so I love to hear you say that. That's such a real and emotional, deep story. And not too many people are able to have that type of gratitude from their parents to be able to do that. And so I love to hear that so much for you. And you bring up your daughter Queah, and I feel like no one, if you know Donna Terrell, you know who Queah Terrell was too, and I feel like her story is just as impactful for you as your own story is. So talk about her. You've made so many remarks for her as well, in your community service within her life. Just talk about your daughter Quay and what she meant to you, how impactful she was to your life, and what she stood for as your daughter.
She was, I get a little bit emotional, but Quea was a beacon, and she was that guiding light, if you will. She was, had a lot to do. I mean, I had a very determined mother, but that determination that I had within me, much of it was inspired because I knew I had this kid that I had to raise. I was responsible for her. And I mean, that's huge. And especially when you're a 16-year-old kid and now you have this child that belongs to you. And I know times have changed. I don't know that girls still look at it the same way, but to me, number one, it was an embarrassment because it was indicative of what I had done that that I should have waited to do. And two, now everywhere I go, there, who's that? Is that your little sister? No, that's my daughter. And not a whole bunch of other girls were saying that at the time. And same thing, you go to school and now you have this kid with you. And I will tell you this story though, and this goes back to determination. um, uh, there was a time when I didn't have anyone to take care of her, and I had to go to class. And I remember thinking, what am I supposed to do? So I didn't ask the instructor if it was okay. I didn't ask anyone. I just took her and I set her next to me with her coloring books. And I told her, I put the fear of God in her. I told her, I said, don't say a word. Don't say one word. For this hour, do not ask me a question. Do not say mommy. Do not say, just sit there and color. So there I am. And these girls who were seated in front of me, they kept looking back. They just kept looking back, and I'm thinking, oh no, this is going to be bad. The professor is gonna kick me out of the class. And they just kept looking back, and then they were laughing, just kind of smiling, and I'm thinking, oh no, what is she doing? What is she doing? And I just looked over at her. And, everyone was taking notes. And she was looking around at people taking notes and looking at the board. And she was with her crayons in her coloring book. She was pretending like she was taking notes. And it was the cutest thing. And I remember feeling so bad because I was about to be so mad at her. And there she was, just being adorable, just being like a little girl, just adorable. So anyway, I mean, there were kids on campus at times when they knew I had problems with finding care for her. They would say, Donna, please let me take care of her. Let me take care of her because we're girls, and it's like, yeah, it's a little girl. I want to take care of her. And so it ended up being the best thing having her with me, and it was a wonderful bonding moment. But what it also did was it instilled in her, little did I know, that when I graduate, I'm supposed to go to college. And so she did. She went, she graduated, majored in journalism,
Yes, ma'am.
and was a good writer, but never actually capitalized on that. She got derailed and went off into a different field, which was fine. But you know, we were very, very, very close. Quea died in 2011. She ended up getting colon cancer. No family history. A lot of people hear about young people getting colon cancer now, and we just did a story not long ago about how the numbers, cancer numbers across the board are going down, but the numbers that are rising are the number of young people who are still getting colon cancer. And it's beyond me that we still don't know why that is, but it's happening. And she was one of the first when they began to realize that this is happening to young people. That said, she was misdiagnosed a couple times, and that's never good because cancer grows, and when you're young, it grows even faster. And so she she didn't make it. So that is my Queah story, but she's always right here with me.
You've started a very large community service project after her life, and what the yoga foundation has meant to her and meant to you as well. Talk about what was the insight for beginning that, and how has it grown over the past couple of years? I know COVID kind of derailed a few years of stuff like that, but how has that foundation and that organization grown within her name?
It's called Donna Terrell's Yoga Warriors Fighting Colon Cancer. A long name for what we do, and probably now at this point a little misleading. But I started that organization, or our first event was in 2014. 10 years now,
Mhm.
uh, and inspired by her. I remember when she was going through her battle. I had been doing a lot of stories on breast cancer and breast cancer awareness and that sort of thing. And I remember she said to me, she's like, Mom, why don't you do some stories on colon cancer? I ended up doing stories on her, um, just to kind of spread the awareness that this is happening to young people. And so anyway, when she passed, I was a basket case. And as you see when I talk about her, I'm still rather emotional, but I was a basket case. I had to get therapy because I was ready to walk off a cliff. It just didn't seem fair, that that could happen to such a bright, upcoming, smart, girl. And on top of everything, raising a kid is no joke. It can be very difficult, very difficult, and especially a girl who has a mind of her own. And it's like, Mom, I don't want to do that. No, Mom, And I'm thinking, finally, we get to a point where life is easy. We are living our lives. We're traveling. We're doing all of these fun things. And now you take her. It's like you decide, God, now's the time to take her. So I was a mess. And so after I worked through that whole therapy thing, I thought, I need to do something to honor her. And yoga was chosen because when she was at MD Anderson getting treatment, they offered yoga to patients and caregivers. And she started doing yoga, and she was like, Mom, it made me feel better. And yoga's no cure, but if done the right way with people who have terminal illnesses or
Yeah.
chronic illnesses, it can be a really, really good thing.
Yeah.
So that's what we did. But we've had many events, and we've done many things. But I will tell you what I'm working on right now, and it's huge. And that's creating what's soon to be called the Donna Terrell's Warrior Lodge, where cancer patients will go for free lodging when they're in town getting long-term treatment for cancer. And
Okay.
that's huge, and that's something that she and I benefited from when I was her caregiver. So I'm excited about that. We're in the midst of raising funds, and the facility is going to be in Jefferson County, in Pine Bluff, because um, they Pine Bluff now has two cancer centers, but this one would feed into Jones Dunklin Cancer Center, and would benefit people who live, low income people with cancer who live in South and Southeast Arkansas. And an area that really could use that service, so that they can get the proper treatment that they need, the life-saving treatment that they need, and can live. And it's not just for colon cancer. In fact, it probably would not house colon cancer survivors. It probably would be more like lung cancer and prostate cancer, and breast cancer, because those are cancers where people need radiation therapy, and radiation therapy is usually several days a week for several weeks. And this would enable people to have a free place to stay, very nice accommodations.
Not just even this focus of a foundation, but you've done so much community service, not even just in Little Rock, but around the state of Arkansas, and you've written so many important and life-changing articles, kind of giving more light to things such as that as well. Why is it so important to continue doing what you're doing, and not even just continue doing what you're doing? Why has it been so important for you to make an initiative on helping changing other people's lives, giving notice to things that may be not being as noticed as well, but maybe you feel very important, so you've always felt that it needs to be more noticed? Why are these things so important to you? Why have you continued to do them so long?
Now, that's a really good question. Um, I feel like that's my place.
Yes, ma'am.
I think God has blessed me. Um,
Yes, ma'am.
I have always felt like giving back, helping
Yes,
other
ma'am.
people is gratifying. At the end of the day, when you've done something good for someone else, it feels good.
Yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
and I guess that's the motivating factor. How can I help? I
Mhm.
think you have to be careful with that because no one ever wants to be taken advantage of. But
Yeah.
I don't feel like people do. I take advantage. I feel like the people who um, um, ask me to participate, be involved in, do something for. I feel like they're much appreciative, and um, at the end of the day, it just feels good.
Yeah.
I guess that's the only. No one's ever really asked me
Mhm.
quite like that, but yeah, it feels good to be of service. To be of
Yes.
service, and even when you look back at why I got into broadcasting, and I tell you my motivation in high school, what made me feel like this was the path I wanted to be on, but um, in latter years, and I mean going way back to when I was in my 20s, um, I would tell people that my job was to help people fight injustice and to give them a voice so that they can be heard. And I think that's just the fiber of who I am at the core. It's like, okay, here's the microphone. Speak now so that people can hear what's happening, so that
Yes,
they
ma'am.
know what's going on. Of course, and as a journalist, you got to get the other side and that sort of thing, and that's fine.
Yes, ma'am.
But sometimes, I mean, there have been stories that I've done where people were in dire straits, really trying to, in a bad situation, and lo and behold, now City Hall, now big government, now huge corporation, we have your attention.
Yes,
We
ma'am.
put it on TV. Do something about it. Um, I think it's gotten a little harder now because it never really seems that easy anymore. I remember there was a time when someone might have had a problem and they could call me up, and I didn't even have to do a story. All I had to do was, call the company or call, whomever. It's like, oh my goodness, we're going to get bad publicity. Let's take care of this person over here that's about to go to the media. But
Mhm.
now it's a
Yes.
it's a little different.
Yes, ma'am. I want to go back. And after graduating college, you talked about you got a job pretty immediately afterwards, and that's not doesn't happen too often with people. But what was your first job like, and how did you experience things in an entry position that you feel like maybe you wouldn't have got anywhere else if you had taken a job anywhere else where you did?
My first job was of course, I was in Michigan. So,
Mhm.
it was in Battle Creek, Michigan. And Battle Creek is about a 20-minute drive from my hometown in Albion. So it was a TV station where everybody at home, they could tune in. I didn't start on television. I took a job as a public affairs coordinator, and I took that job because it was the job that was open at the time.
Yeah.
The station where I went to at that point didn't even have a news department. I just knew I needed a job, and because I got this kid and everything. I just graduated from school, and I want some money. So I took the job, and shortly after I started, they launched news. And now that I think back, someone might have told me that they were going to launch a newscast, and I saw this as a way of getting my foot in the door.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
so, uh, sure enough, they did launch the newscast, and I went to the news director, and said, I want to be a reporter. And he said to me, he said, um, but you don't have any experience, and we're hiring people with experience. I'm like, oh. And so I walked away feeling so defeated. I was like, my goodness, how am I supposed to get experience if you never give me any experience? What am I supposed to do? And so I was so sad. And I because I was never really crazy about this community service, or community affairs coordinator, because basically what I did was I helped produce public service announcements, and I was not on TV or anything like that, and I coordinated public service announcements, national ones that were brought to us. And I did a few other things, but it wasn't anything that I wanted to write home about, other
Yes,
than the
ma'am.
fact that I've graduated from college and this is my job. So eventually I got the courage to go back to the news director, and I said, can I um, periodically come down into, and I say down because it was downstairs, come down into the news department and follow people around and just kind of help out if I can, and just, because I'm trying to get experience. And to my surprise, he said yes. So I started doing that. And sometimes I would do it every day. I would just go in there and just got to know the staff. They got to know me. Some of them liked me a lot. They knew how much I wanted to be a reporter. All I wanted was, please, God, just let me become a reporter. And one day, there were people in that department. They started rallying for me and going to the news directors like, you need to give her a shot, you need to give her a shot. So one day I got the courage, went to the news director and said, can I cover a story? Can I just go out on a story with a photographer and just, let's just see how it goes? And he said yes, but he said there was no guarantee that that story would end up on TV. No
Mhm.
guarantee. I said okay. And so my first story in my whole life, the one that launched the career for Donna Terrell,
Yes, ma'am.
was Flower Fest. Flower Fest. And it is the exact a festival of flowers. And people would come and look at the beautiful flowers. And I guess there were maybe, like food and stuff like that, but it was Flower Fest. I was so scared. I was scared to interview people. I was scared to walk up to people and ask them, "So what do you think of Flower Fest?
Yes, ma'am.
What's your favorite flower?" Stuff like that. And I came back, wrote my story. The editor put it together, and my photographer really helped me a lot, because he was like, "Donna, go interview that person. Donna, ask them about blah blah blah. Donna, go." And so put the story together, and it aired. It aired on Channel 41 WUHQ. They've changed their call letters now, but that's who they were. And all my friends and family at home were watching. And after that, I ended up in the news department as a reporter.
That's awesome. Can I ask you, and this is for me, but it's also, and I love to share certain episodes with certain people. What's one piece of advice that you would give to someone pursuing to be in the TV world, be a journalist? What's one piece of advice that you would give to us in this world of journalism?
You know, the business has changed so much since when I began, but for people like you entering the the field, you never experienced any of that change. And I remember when I got into the business, um, there were people who had been in the business for a million years. I say a million years. I've been in the business for a million years. Exaggeration, of course, but you know what I'm saying. It's been a long time. And I they were disillusioned by that time. It's like the business has changed so much, it's changed so much. But I got in and I'm like, I think the business is great. This is wonderful because I'm in it now. I am right where I always felt I belong. But the thing, because there are times when this business will challenge you, people look at it as, oh, wow, you're on TV and da 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 da. It's like it's not as glamorous as people think it is. It just isn't. There are times when you walk away at the end of the day and it's like, my God, what a challenge that was. Or this day, I mean, like anything, it's not easy, especially when you're starting out. So my advice to people is to truly, truly want to be in it. Because don't, I mean, okay, it's fine to test the waters and that sort of thing. And granted, it might work out for you, but I've seen too many people fail because they were in it for the wrong reasons. And failure, maybe it's a relative term because some people, um, it was a good experience to have.
Mhm.
But if you truly want to be in this business, I think you really have to want it truly, truly deep down inside, because that's going to get you through those days and those moments and those times when it's difficult. It's difficult. And it's also going to make you go the extra mile to get better, to be better, to do better. So that's my advice. And learn from the people who've been in it for a while. Don't get discouraged by some of the people and some of the things that they will say to you, because like, me, we have new people coming in, and I think sometimes they think, oh, Donna's mean. Well, she's not really mean, but she's trying to help you get better. And
Yes,
I
ma'am.
can't help you get better by always, being this person is like, well, here, let me help you fix it. Let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to get better.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
sometimes it's a little bit of tough love. And when those kind of things happen, it can be a little discouraging, but I think you need to take it in the manner of, this is going to make me a better journalist, because it's highly competitive. And there are some people who walk right out of college, and you'll be one of them. Walk in the door, and it's like, oh my God, you really do have experience, don't you? It's like, no, this is my first job. Oh, yeah, right. And then there are other people that they need time to develop.
Yes,
And
ma'am.
those are the ones that, can get discouraged by some of what we say to them.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And because things such as that allow me to be more comfortable outside of my box, and I think that's something that I'm learning and growing to do. And so that means a lot to me because taking advice is something that I really love to do. And I know some people don't like criticism, and that wasn't necessarily criticism, but I'm very just applauded of it because in this field, I feel like everything is moving so quickly, and you can't get better if you aren't learning and asking questions and allowing people that have been there to be able to help you. So I appreciate that so much.
Oh, sure. No, no problem at all. And that's, learn from people. Just uh, try to soak in as much knowledge as you possibly can. We people coming in now, and you will see this back when I entered the business. In order to get a job in a city like Little Rock, you better come in with years of experience. Okay, now we're hiring people right out of college. You'll be
Mhm.
able to get a job right out of college. Going back to what I was telling you when I got out of college, and the guy was like, we're hiring people with experience. Well, you know what? We're taking people who don't have experience, but do have a college degree in the field, and we are shaping them into trying anyway to shape them into that journalist.
Yes, ma'am.
And so, But you do need to be confident, Dalen. You need to be very, very, very confident, but at the same time walk that fine line of I'm still learning,
That's
and letting people know that you feel comfortable that you're still learning,
that's
and that is a fine line. How does one do that? How do you go from, it's like, oh, well, I'm confident enough to go out and do this story and put this together, and then come back and say, well, what did you think of it? It's like, please break it down and tell me what I could have done that would have been better.
Can I ask you, going back to your first job, and in the midst of that, did you have any like immediate goals that you felt like that I want to be here at this certain point in my life, or I want to be at this place at this station? Did you have any goals, or were you just really trying truly living in the moment, enjoying where you were, and allowing the process to be where you were at?
Probably a little bit of both. I mean, at first getting into the business, like dealing with those tough days. I had a woman say to me, well, she did, I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. She said, Donna can't write her way out of a paper bag. And that stuck with me for years, years and years and years and years, because I always felt like, I'm trying so hard to write, and writing was for me, right? It would take me back to what I was talking about earlier when I had a journalism class in high school, and Mrs. Henry would take her red pen and she would mark up my whole, article, because Donna, this is not right. This is a fragmented sentence. This is da 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 da. This is da, that sort of thing. And it would take me back to that insecurity that I had from that experience. And now I just heard this woman who I admired a whole lot say this about me. And it followed me from job to job to job. Meaning, when I got ready to write a story, I would sit there and like, where do I start? Where do I start? Because it's probably going to be bad. And then I'd write it, and then I'd rewrite it and rewrite it, because I didn't want anyone to ever say that again. Ever say that again. And so, interestingly enough, no one ever said that again. and but to answer your question, uh, the goal was to make it to the network. That was always my goal. My goal was to work for ABC, NBC, CBS, one of those. And if not that, to be a main anchor in a major market. That was like, I would tell people, it's like, I'm going to be a main anchor in a major market. I accomplished that goal. I'm in a medium market right now, but I did accomplish that goal in Detroit. I made it to Detroit as a main anchor, a major market. And that, that was, it took working at many, many stations, which that's the business. That was always how the business was. If you wanted to move up, you typically, not always, but you typically had to move out and get a job at a higher level, making more money, and so on and so on. But I accomplished that goal after, working in Battle Creek, South Bend, Indiana, Cleveland, Ohio, at all of these places. I was a reporter and I was an anchor. I was a reporter and I was an anchor, whether it was weekend anchor, morning anchor, whatever the case, and, medical reporter, general assignment reporter, all of those. And then I get a job in Detroit, Michigan as a main anchor, evening anchor. That's main, evening. Typically, when the main anchor is the person who does the last newscast of the night. So, in here, we're in Central Time, so that would be 10 o'clock, in our case for Fox 16, 9 o'clock. And in Detroit, that would be 11 o'clock and 10 o'clock. There I was, main anchor. They canceled our news. I finally reached my pinnacle of my career, and they canceled news. It was a budget thing. That station just recently launched news after all these years, and I've been in Little Rock 20 years. But anyway, I got to Little Rock as a main anchor, and stayed here because it was a good situation. Sometimes, you set these goals and you expect for, for them to work out, but God has another plan for you. The plan was always to be in television, and the plan was to be a main anchor. But the plan was, Donna, you're better suited here. And I had, I mean, I had opportunities to leave, but my daughter got sick. Fox 16 would allow me to go to Houston to be with her at a moment's notice. While she was sick, if I had gotten another job elsewhere, no one would have understood. What do you mean you need time off again to go to your daughter? And then I became her caregiver here. And so I couldn't leave then. And so then after she died, I was too distraught to even think about looking for another job. And then as time went by, it's like, you know what, Donna, this is where you're supposed to be. You are right where you're supposed to be. And so that's that.
I'm going to come back to this, but I want to ask you, I'm a huge music lover. And so I love asking people what's some of their favorite artists, songs, maybe genres or bands. So I want to ask you, who are your music artists, maybe someone you play when you're cleaning up or anything, someone when you're working out. Like, what are some of your favorite music artists and songs to play?
Oh, Dalen, you would ask me that question because, I can never really think of the names right off the top of my head. But I love Maxwell. I mean, I love Usher. I listen to a lot of Usher. I'm trying to think of my playlist. Maybe I can get this real fast. Maybe I can get it real fast. And every time I ever try to find something real fast, then it's like real slow. Where is it? The interesting thing about that, I'm finding it. The interesting thing about what you're asking me goes back to my childhood, because my dad listened to everything. And when I say everything, he didn't listen to a lot of blues, but Joan Baez, you have no idea who that is. I know. She is like folk songs. Anyway, okay, so I'm just gonna name some names. George Benson, Lady Blue, love that song. Jaheim, Age Ain't a Factor. But then Barely Breathing by Duncan Sheik. Jaheim is one of my favorites. Eminem, love Eminem, love him. Kenny Loggins, Celebrate Me Home. Jill Scott, Kim, Tupac. Tupac goes back to my daughter. She loved Tupac. And Dear Mama is one of my favorite songs. I feel like it's my daughter singing that song to me. Not that I was ever a druggie or anything like that. But there are some sayings in there because, I was a single mom trying to raise her. But, I got Mariah Carey up in here, Life Jennings. Okay, so I think you're following me here. Got a little bit of Snoop Dogg. I got some Elton John. So there you have it. Okay. I'm all over the place when it comes to people. All over the place.
I love that because you have some Michigan ties too as well, and you got some West Coast and stuff. I love that. It's a different diverse. I think, and I say this because of my diverse music taste. People tell me that your music is kind of describing of you, and so I feel like you just have a lot of different types of personalities at certain points that kind of vibe with each song and each artist. So I love that so much.
Thank you.
I've gotten to know you in Arkansas, and I think the state of Arkansas has fell in love with what you do over the last 2 decades. First, I want to ask, how did you get in contact with Fox in Little Rock? How did that opportunity even come apart to you? And when you started, what was the start like? What did it have any rocky bumps in the road? Was it a smooth sailing? Were there opportunities to have to learn with other coworkers? What was your start like at Fox in 2004?
I'm so glad you asked me that question because if you remember, I told you in Detroit, they canceled our newscast. So that meant Donna was out of a job.
Yes, ma'am.
I mean, they told us maybe 2 months out or something like that. It wasn't a lot of time, and they said, we're going to abolish all news on this TV station. I'm like, what? It's like, how would you? What? That's unheard of in Detroit at a CBS affiliate. You're doing what? And sure enough, they did. So now I'm out of a job and I'm out here interviewing. I had an interview in Baltimore. They offered me the job as a morning anchor. I said no because I have been a main anchor. It's like, I don't want to do mornings anymore. The nerve of me, right? The nerve. I need a job, people. And then Chicago, WLS, and I'm just naming the biggies. WLS comes along and they're like, oh, we're looking for a weekend anchor. I had 2 interviews, two. They flew me in, then flew me in again. So, I mean, I was right up there. I didn't get it. Everybody kept saying, claim it, Donna, claim it. I'm like, I'm claiming it. God, I'm claiming it. I didn't get it. And I'm like, how could that not be? And I remember this was for weekends. And, by this time I'm less arrogant. I know I was a main, but I'll take this weekend job because I need work. And the weekend anchor, who would have been my co-anchor, he said, whatever you think they're going to pay you, it's gonna be more. I'm like, oh, and he had no idea what I thought they were gonna pay me. I'm like, you mean it's gonna be more than what I'm thinking they're gonna pay me? Oh my God. But was not meant to be. They ended up hiring, and she's still there today, 20 years later. I think she's still doing weekends too. So think about that. I'd still be on weekends. Um, she was from Chicago. She was working in Philadelphia. So all things being equal, I mean, I was in Detroit, she was in Philadelphia, but she was from Chicago, and that was attractive to them to bring a girl, a woman home to her hometown versus this outsider. So anyway, I didn't get the job. So one day I'm working freelance now at WXYZ in Detroit. And freelance, I mean, it's great. I'm back on television, but I have no benefits. The money is horrible in comparison to, people who are under contract. And I might work 3 days this week and next week 4 days. And then the next week I might not work at all. It's like, I need work. So I get this phone call from this news director in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm like, what? Huh? So he said, Donna, and I knew this was someone that I actually knew, didn't know him well, but our paths had crossed. He's like, Donna, guess where I am? I'm in Little Rock, Arkansas. I'm like, oh, that's great. And he said, we're looking for a main anchor. We're launching news on Fox 16, and it's going to be a 9 o'clock hour-long newscast. First of all, would you be interested? Like, I'm going to say no. I needed a job. And so I came here in December 2023. I interviewed with what seemed like everybody at that station, from the sales staff to the cleaning crew. I mean, the general manager, everybody. And everybody wanted me. They wanted me, and it felt so good to like be courted, so to speak. It's like they recognized my talent. They knew what I brought to the table. It was one of the easiest interviews I had ever had in my life until I got to the general manager, which was the last interview that day, which I was not at all expecting to be grilled on all of these things. But it was like I was ready. I mean, I had prepared myself for an interview, but it had just been a couple days, actually. It was like a 2-day interview of just smooth sailing. So anyway, I get back to Detroit because I'm obviously still living there, and I got a phone call. And Michael Fayback, the news director, said, Donna, we want to offer you the job. And they did, and I accepted. And I came here, and we launched this newscast, and we had state of the art equipment. We had all of the bells and whistles. We had everything we needed, but for goodness sakes, we couldn't seem to get through a rehearsal without technical problems.
Mhm.
It was bad. I mean, every night was horrible because we were pretending like we were going on air, but we weren't actually pulling the trigger and broadcasting.
Yes, ma'am.
And so I remember we were going to go on air. It was a Sunday. We were going to launch it on a Sunday, even though it's scheduled Monday through Friday. But we wanted to launch it on a Sunday night because Sunday night typically has your highest viewership of people. And so, leading up days before that, we were going to scrap it and say, no, we're not ready. We're going to have to push our launch date. And someone said, no, we are launching. And I remember that night, and Kevin Kelly and I were sitting there. It's like, oh, Lord. It's like, we're going to go, this is going to be bad. That first night was relatively flawless. Relatively flawless. We had no technical problems. But then the next night we had technical problems, and the next night we had technical problems. And so that was one of the big things. And I don't know what it was. I don't remember what it was because, technical, the technical side, that's not my forte. That's, when you
Mhm.
talk about sending out the signal and doing all of that, that's just not my forte. My forte is news. But we just always seem to have these technical problems. The other thing, though, I mean, and we don't. So I mean, it's been 20 years now, so all of that's behind us.
Mhm.
But the other thing was gaining a foothold in the market because our team was interviewed, our core team, meaning Kevin, me, our David Rath, who was our sports guy at the time, and Troy Bridges, who was our weather person. They would we parade us around town with interviews and stuff like that. And there were people who just didn't believe that Arkansans wanted a 9 o'clock newscast. I remember asking point blank, what makes you think Arkansans want a 9 o'clock newscast? And I'm like, well, why wouldn't they? So the part of the challenge was getting people to buy into 9 o'clock, 9 o'clock, and making them believe, people, we are here to stay. This is real right here. This is not, because I think someone at some point in Arkansas had started a 9 o'clock newscast. And it was a joke. It ended up being a joke, and it did not last. 20 years later, here we sit. So, but it was always, in terms of the experience in coming here, it was always a good experience. It's always been a good experience. Obviously, there are challenges that you go through from day to day and, week to week, month to month. But working here in comparison to other places where I worked, it was always a good experience, always has been. And that's been a driver too. I talk about why I'm still here and the challenges that I faced when my daughter was sick. But, I've been lucky, really lucky, and knock on wood, to have had and still have really good managers
Yes,
and
ma'am.
people who you can work with, and you don't mind going into work today. I don't mind going to work, because I know that, there's nothing that's going to happen that I can't handle, or that at the end of the day is like, why am I still there?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm still there because it's a good situation, a good environment. And Arkansas has been good to me. Arkansas has been very good to me.
I would be wrong if I didn't ask you about Kevin Kelly. You guys have been together for almost 2 full decades now. What is your relationship with him? Like, what has he meant to you? And I would love to know, how much work do you two put in terms of gathering stories, maybe working before shows start to make sure everything is smooth. How much does that go into, before you actually get on air in the evening and at night times?
Well, Kevin Kelly and I are the longest running news anchor team. There are people who have probably been in the market or been on television more than 20 years. Although, some of them are gone now, but in terms of an core anchor team, we are the longest running. When we looked it up the other day, because we were trying to think, do we hold that record in the country? We found somebody who has 25 years down in, where are they? I think they're in some small town in Louisiana. Yeah.
Okay.
So we don't hold the title in the country, but definitely in the state of Arkansas. And
Mhm.
I mean, we're up there, I mean, I'd like to know who the others are, if there are others. But so that said, Kevin and I are like brother and sister. And so that means we fight like brother and sister.
Yes,
But the
ma'am.
one thing we've always had is a tremendous amount of respect for each other and for what each of us bring to the table. He brings his talents, his knowledge. Um, I bring mine, and many of the things that happen are how we feel about news, how we feel about how our show is put together, and we do have a lot of influence on the shaping of our newscast each night, every night. Um, he and I pretty much agree. We typically are on the same page with that. There's a promo out right now that's running on Fox 16 commercial, um, where Kevin, he's kind of like praising me.
Mhm.
Sometimes when people are saying nice things about you, you just let them talk. Okay, so we were on TV and he was like, you have helped to make me a better man, a better a better journalist. I view you as my TV wife. I say that all the time. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, oh, well, that's now a commercial.
Mhm.
But um, that's what happens though when two people have worked together this long and have chemistry. We could not have been on air for 20 years together if we didn't get along.
Yes, ma'am.
And when people see us, quote unquote, fighting or disagreeing, they just kind of mark it off as, well, that's Donna and Kevin.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, it's like I'm there for him, he's there for me. And even on air, like if we run into a problem, or if I'm reading something and I'm confused or he's confused or whatever, we will help bail each other out. That's what a team does. And so in terms of the shaping of our show and what we do we report? Yes. We're storytellers. I'm not a
Mhm.
reporter, I'm a storyteller.
Yes, ma'am.
So that means, I tell stories. Do I do that every night? Of course not. I don't have time to do that every night. But he and I typically do big stories, special reports. And from day to day, we might write some of the stories in our newscast, but we go over every single story, especially the ones that we have to read, and we change them, we rewrite them, we talk to reporters, we help reporters with their stories.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what our day consists of. But if I can just share one thing with you, because I'm afraid you're not going to ask me.
Go ahead.
um, I mentioned how my goal back when I was getting into the business, starting out, was to get to the network level.
Mhm.
In the last few years, we have a company that owns us. It's called Nexstar Media Group.
Mhm.
Nexstar owns um, 200 stations. And also, we now have News Nation, which is a news channel, and it's trying to rise to the occasion of your CNNs, Fox News, MSNBC, but it's that type of thing. It's young, it's just starting, and it's trying to get to that point. But they have hired a lot of big names. But anyway, that's who Nexstar is. So I look at Nexstar as a network, and for the last 4 or 5 years, they have come to me to have me create um, the marquee stories for Black History Month, and these stories air on every station in our group. So that to me is national. Well, this year was really special because um, the story that I was working on, the national story for Next Star, was on Yolanda Renee King, who was the only grandchild of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes, ma'am.
So, okay, Donna, we're sending you to Atlanta. And when they do, like these stories that I'm working on, these are national stories. So I'm sent to other states, other states. So in this case, back in November, they sent me to Atlanta. And I had a field producer, I should say, more of a special projects producer out of New York who now works for Nexstar, and a photographer from Denver, our Denver station. We all met up there and started working on this story. Well, what we actually ended up doing was creating a show, a half-hour show that aired on Martin Luther King on the King holiday and that weekend on
Mhm.
all of the stations in the group. So that meant your girl here was seen on this half-hour show as the host of the show
That's
in
awesome.
New York, LA, Chicago, Dallas, Seattle, um, um, San Diego, all over the country.
Yes,
And it's
ma'am.
almost like living that dream of working for the network.
Mhm.
So this has been, once a year, a once a year thing for me, and I hope I get another show. But it was like a dream, and the best part of that dream, in addition to being seen in all of these markets, well, the best part is it was a very, very good show. And number two, the people in my hometown, the people in my hometown of Albion saw it, and it
That's
wasn't because I called them up and said, "Oh, you gotta watch." I didn't even
mhm.
realize we had a Next Star station in that market. And next thing you know, it's on Facebook. And, it's like, we just saw Donna Terrell, I'm like, oh, this is so wonderful. So it's like I feel like I am now living that part of my dream. And it
Yes, ma'am.
feels good.
That's awesome. And can I ask you, just because you say that, um, how in continuing to honestly live your dream and as well now, do you have any more goals that you would like to maybe check off your list for the future, or have you accomplished everything that you wanted to do?
Oh my God, that's a tough question right there. I don't know. I, d- I don't know because um, uh, that's a good question. I have to really think about that because,
Mhm.
I mean, in terms of the whole network thing, I had kind of, it's like that was years ago. That's, I'm not going to do that. And then lo and behold, it's like I felt like I'm living it. Here it is. I'm living it in real time.
Yes, ma'am.
Uh, so you never know.
Yes,
You never know about that. And I think I don't ever want to limit myself. I've been in the business now for I just got a Silver Circle Award, which is like a what do you call that? Like a lifetime achievement award for having been in the business, and much of it was driven by my community service within this industry.
yes,
Uh,
ma'am.
and that's for like 25 years plus. And I added it up. I'm under 40 years in the business. I think I'm something like 37 or 38 years in the business.
Wow.
So that said, that said, I've been in you weren't even born when I got into business. That said, uh, I don't ever want to limit myself and say, I've done it all, because there may be other opportunities like that out there. I mean,
Mhm.
I didn't know Nexstar would be coming to little old me. I say little old me. My former agent. I was talking to him the other day, and he was like, "Donna, Donna, you got to stop. You got to stop." He's like, "You were seen, and Nexstar could have pulled someone from L.A. or New York or da da da. They went to Little Rock, Arkansas, and chose you." It's like, stop talking about little old me. So but to answer that question, don't count me out, and there may be other things. And the next time, if this opportunity with you, if it ever rolls back around again, I
Yes,
could
ma'am.
be telling you about this new thing that happened that was just amazing and another part of the dream.
Yes, ma'am. I would love to continue that for the next part of your dream when it does happen. So I would love that. I want to ask you if you could have dinner with five people, dead or alive, who would they be and why?
Five people, dead or alive. Um, I've kind of been asked a question like this before. Um, Let me get out of my own head so I can think. I would want to have I would want to have dinner with um, the woman from REL Management, Melody Hobbs. I would really like to sit down with her. She is the owner of REL Management, which is a financial firm in uh, in Chicago. But she's also done television, um, uh, talking about finances. I'd like to
Mhm.
talk with her about financial things, but I would like to also talk with her about the fact that I think she is an African American woman, but if I remember correctly, she's part owner now of the Broncos, the Denver Broncos, whichever team Walmart
Yes, ma'am.
they brought her in, and she is the first African American,
Mm-hmm.
um, I don't want to say African American, but definitely African American female owner. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
she's, I would love to get in front of her and just talk to her and pick her brain and hear what
Mm-hmm.
motivates her and all of that. I have always said Steve Jobs, and people, kind of look at me and raise an eyebrows like, why? But Steve Jobs to me was just a fascinating man.
Mm-hmm.
Um, creating Apple and how he went about all of that. Maybe not the the nicest man, but I think I could learn some things from him. Um, Tom Hanks,
Yeah.
I would really like to just have a moment, a cup of coffee is like, and hear his story.
Yes, ma'am.
There is not a movie he's ever done that I haven't enjoyed. And when I say that, and I'm going to put these two together, okay, as my third. I said Tom Hanks, but Denzel Washington, and part of me doesn't want to say Denzel Washington. Part of that because I'm a girl, and folks would say, oh, you just want to but no, for the same reason that I would want to meet Tom Hanks, I would want to meet Denzel. Number four, this is a challenge. Oprah always comes to mind. Um, eh, Oprah is not the same Oprah um, that I knew when I was coming along and revered. I mean, she's done so much, but the woman is absolutely incredible in terms of how she maneuvered. I mean, she was a me. She was me. She was a news anchor, and now look at who she is. And I guess the other person, and there are probably more, but the other person who's dead and gone, but it would be Michael Jordan's mom. I would want to talk to that woman. She is the reason Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. I mean, granted, yeah, she is the reason physically and financially. I mean, she and her husband created him, but she made some powerful decisions with Nike, and
Mhm.
I mean that a mother's love. Um, yeah. It's like, how did you have the foresight to tell Nike that you want your son to have, a percentage of the sales for the rest of his life? Who does that?
Mm-hmm.
So that would be my five, I guess. And if I sat here long enough, I'd probably think of some more. I would really like to um, bring my daughter and my mom and my dad and now my brother, my immediate family, the people that I grew up with, they're all gone. I'm the only one still living. And so my bonus on that question would be to bring my entire immediate family back and
That's
sit at
right.
the table and just tell them what's been going on since they left.
That's awesome. And I'm sure they will be proud. And I love each one of those five answers because it's like the music thing. It gives a different diversity into who you are as a person and what you love. And so I truly love that. And I want to ask you this. It's something that I love to ask before I kind of close things out as well. And it's kind of two questions in one. But what's one piece of advice you would give to people watching and listening? And it doesn't have to be about journalism. It can just be about anything, life in general, that you would love to give advice about. And also, legacy is really important to me, and just making sure I'm doing what I want to do and doing what I love, and making sure that I'm changing people's lives. And so, what is a positive? What legacy do you want to leave behind? What do you want people to always remember about Donna Terrell?
I would tell people watching right now to love themselves, love themselves. um, do all of the good things for themselves, meaning, put good foods into your body, exercise. You can see I'm in my exercise room right now. Um, um, be good to self. Don't beat up on yourself. If you do, take it as a learning experience to be better. Find your spirituality. Sometimes we get so caught up with putting other people first, and that's like, a man or, women trying to, get a guy. And keep in mind, there's a difference between um, putting yourself first and being selfish. And sometimes I would tell my daughter, sometimes you do have to be selfish, because this world can suck so much out of you. It can
Yes, ma'am.
take away so much of you. So just be good to yourselves. um, because if you do that, it will enable you to be good to others and to help others.
Yes, ma'am.
You run yourself ragged, you put all the bad things in your bodies, you do things that are just not healthy, both um, physically and mentally, then it puts you in a situation where you're no good to yourself or anyone else for that
Yes.
matter. And I guess in terms of a legacy, I've always said, um, on my tombstone, I want them to write, "She tried." And someone very close to me said, "No, we're going to put, 'She did.'"
Wow. Wow. I love that, and it's short and quick, but it's something that in 4 years of doing these conversations, I've never heard. It's something that in 19 years on Earth, I've never heard before. So I absolutely love that, and I wrote your advice down. I just wrote what you said about your legacy down too, because everyone's story is different, and it's different and unique, and that will always apply to who you are as a person. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I also just want to say thank you for allowing me to chat with you. Like I said, I've done this for 4 years now, and this has probably been one of the most informative, fun, and honestly emotional stories that I've ever been able to listen and learn and talk with. So I appreciate you so much for allowing me to talk with you this morning. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's been an honor. It's been an honor. I'm so glad you asked. Thank you.
Yes, Miss Donna. I can't appreciate you enough. And this is not just me sending love, but I'm sure many people in the state of Arkansas sending love to you for what you do and what you've done for so long and what you're going to continue doing as well. So I love to give people their flowers. And so I just want to give you your flowers for what you're doing, what you're going to continue doing. So thank you, and much love and blessings to you as well.
Likewise to you. Thank you so much, Dalen.
Thank you. Thank you to Miss Nicole Griffin too. That is how we met originally a couple years ago, and I don't give her the props that I have been able to give for so many different episodes as well over the past couple years. But she has been such a mentor in my life and allowed me to be able to have conversations with people like you. So shout out to Miss Griffin as well. She has changed my life and so many other lives too. She's such a special woman, and I'm giving her her flowers too. I don't think she gets the flowers she deserves. So thank you so much to Miss Griffin. And thank you, Miss Donna. And thank you guys for listening, man. I hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Hope you learned, laughed a little bit, and got to know a little bit about Miss Donna that you probably didn't know before, because a lot of these things I didn't know. And I'm sure she loved it, sharing and expressing them so much. So thank you again, Miss Donna.
Thank you. Good luck to you.
I appreciate that so much. Take care, everyone. God bless.